Good afternoon and welcome to the future of the 21X Career Field Manager panel. I'm Lieutenant Colonel John Millard, working 21R Force Development, and I have the distinct pleasure to facilitate this panel today. We are coming at you live from the National Capital Region, and I am pumped to be here. Our CFMs are ecstatic to be here, and we thank each of you for joining us during this 50-minute session. This panel is geared towards the premise of LOA University, to develop and enhance our logistics professionals, and this is accomplished through the daily efforts and the priorities laid out by our CFMs with respect to the right 21X education, training, experiences to achieve the Air Force's Title X responsibilities when presenting our forces to combatant commanders. So in that essence, think organize, train, and equip. This session is going to be very robust. We only got 50 minutes, but we have two main topics that we really want to hit. First being 21X education and training, and the second being evolving concepts and new force projection models. So think of that as agile combat employment, ACE. We've all heard it. We're going to dive into some of those topics. We have also carved out a full session, a little piece of live Q&A. And so over on the Logistics Symposium virtual platform, you will see a chat box to your right. If you have questions percolating in your mind, please go ahead and type those out in the chat box. Those will be live fed into this session here, and we're going to get to as many of those as we possibly can over the next 50 minutes. So with that, gentlemen, we're going to open up with just a quick, brief intro of each of you. So Colonel Maxwell, if you could start us off, and then we're going to roll to Colonel Power and then over to Colonel Coley, and then we're going to get diving into the topics. Sir, over to you.
Sounds great. Thanks, John. So Colonel Bill Maxwell, the Chief of the Aircraft Maintenance Division in the 21 Alpha CFM, 25-year aircraft maintainer, and spent most of those years between jobs that was either on the flight line or taking care of force development type of opportunities, which is really my passion and a fantastic thing that I get an opportunity to be able to be a part of every single day with my two counterpart CFMs, as well as with the force development team that we work with and the team at AFPC to work on all of the training, education, and experiential opportunities that we've got for our maintainers. So look forward to the opportunity today.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Colonel Mike Power. I'm the Chief of the Nuclear Weapons, Missiles, and Munitions Division, A4LW at the Pentagon, and also the 21M Munitions and Missile Maintenance Officer, Career Field Manager. Been on the job about 9 months, and it's been an awesome time working with my two peers here and the rest of the team as we try to do our best to take care of, in our case, the 21Ms, 350 strong or so throughout the Air Force. I am a 21M, coming up on 20 years of service, served in all three shreds of our career field: ICBM maintenance, nuclear munitions maintenance, and conventional munitions maintenance. And proud to be here and talking about our folks today. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Colonel Brad Coley, the Chief of the Logistics Readiness Division here in A4L, but also the 21R CFM. I've been on the job for going almost 2 years now. Colonel Maxwell and I got to the building at the same time, this go around anyway. Been a LRO since the inception of the career field, and before that I was doing log plans work for the remainder of my career. Commanded at the squadron group level and done lots of different staff assignments, and much like my two peers here on the panel, force development of all 21X officers is really what keeps me coming to work every day, and it's a passion of mine. So I am excited to be with you both today and the individual breakouts that we have on the first. And yes, your eyes do not fool you. All three of us are rocking the ABUs as we close out the usefulness of this uniform the next 2 days. This is my last opportunity to be on a grand stage in this uniform, and we all just wanted to rep it one last time. Back to you, John.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. So I'm getting some good vibes from Logistics Officer Association, LOA Symposium, virtual platform. I think everyone's ready to join y'all on this journey. So let's go ahead and dive into those first round of topics, 21X education and training. For the audience out there, what you're going to notice is that we essentially have some teed up questions that I've produced to hand over to our CFMs to answer. Some of those are going to be 21X more centric type responses, and then there's going to be others that dive more so into each of the different career fields. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into that first question. So, gentlemen, Can you provide an overview of the current efforts ongoing at the Air Force Logistics Officer School, otherwise known as AFLOS, with your respect to tech school overhauls?
So I'll go ahead and start that one for us and see what kind of ads everybody else wants to make. We are really excited about the work that's been going on down at AFLOS from the 21 Alpha perspective. About a year and a half ago, I had the opportunity to be able to attend an STRT process where we were taking a look at, and a UNTW process where we were taking a look at the competencies that we develop in our aircraft maintenance officers at the basic level and then at the intermediate level. And what was really exciting about that was what Lieutenant Colonel Jen Gerganis and I were able to explore was new ideas on how to be able to develop the types of competencies that we want in our leadership, in our maintenance officers. And our predecessors in these jobs had done a lot of work to be able to set us up, understanding a different view on competency-based development. We're going to get into that here too with another question, but at AFLOS is where we operationalize it, at least at the basic level and then at the intermediate level. And at that basic level, we were able to hand that cadre a new set of competencies that we were looking for to be able to develop in the maintenance officers that were going to be taking roles out there. They then had an opportunity to be able to fully pull apart everything that we had in our basic class and then rebuild and restructure a new course, completely new. I mean, from the ground up, to the point that the process that we use now for this type of education is when people first arrive at their installations, at their bases, they're going to do an initial skill set start at that location to be able to give them take the abstract ideas that they're going to be given later on and give them context in that environment. So now they can visualize those things when they're going through AFLOS. AFLOS itself has now, from the maintenance officer course, is now in the process of going through its very first class. And that very first class is going to graduate here in April sometime soon. And we're going to get a chance to be able to talk to those students about every single part of their experience they've gone through it. I'm extremely excited about what this team has done. The core cadre down there at AFLOS did amazing work to be able to quick turn the development of that course for all 21 alphas. And we're going to be using a total force as well. And right now, the cadre is very excited about it. The first round of students that are in there for us has been really excited about it. And they're walking into that environment with an understanding of what these concepts are all about and how these things matter with regard to accomplishing that mission. So I'm extremely excited about the work that's going on at AFLOS. And I don't know if Brad or Mike, if you all want to add on to that, because you all are going through some of the same work right now.
Yeah, just to add on to it real quick. So the 21Ms have followed the lead of the 21As. You know, it's always good to copy a really good idea. And so we're moving forward with the same exact thing. We've examined and redone our whole course training standard for all of our initial courses down there at Shepherd. And we're a little bit behind them because we started after them, but January of 22, we'll start our first classes as well under this new concept. And same thing, we're super excited just because we think it's going to produce better maintenance officers at our wings. Thanks.
Yeah, much like Colonel Power, we are following the 21A lead as we get into competency-based learning and the retooling of our initial skills and our intermediate skills courses. And like my two peers, right, I am so excited because the focus is on helping our officers learn to think through the issues that they're going to be faced with versus just figuring out a checklist to follow. And the investment to totally rework all the courses for all the career fields is incredible because it's going to produce, like Colonel Power just said, a better officer to make better decisions on the fly and have the flexibility, the cognitive ability to do that when it's called upon. And we're moving to the future, which is just a really exciting time to be. And watching for our career field, specifically the community coming together to crowdsource how we're moving these courses forward is truly amazing. So just a quick thank you to all the folks that are involved in retooling these courses, no matter what your AFSC is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Moving on to the next question. Can you provide an update or rather an overview of your career field's advanced courses, where they're at today, where you might see the curriculum going? Over to y'all.
Okay, so I'll jump on this one first. So many of you out there in the LOA population know that our advanced course for 21Rs was LROC. And for a few years ago, we had to bring that down as we retooled it and maybe, and at the time moved it to a different location. Um, I won't go super into the details because I want to bait you a little bit to join me on the 1st of April when we have a relatively big rollout of a decision and moving forward for that. So still didn't answer the question fully, John, but I did want to put that marker out there to generate at least a little interest to come on back and join me on the 21R forum on the 1st.
That's a great teaser, Brad. Nice job. Nice job. So on the Amos side, that schoolhouse continues to perform incredibly well, and is continuing to look towards future concepts that we're going to be handling as both sets of maintenance officer as well as our senior enlisted corps wind up having an opportunity to be able to go through that course through the ASPC course, which it continues to have new iterations. It continues to have new education that's brought into it. And of course, the TTPs inform what's trained there. And then that circles back out to the field with all those graduates. So I'm super excited about what they continue to do. What I've also seen happen over this last year is a strong merge across the full continuum of education and training that we have. The partnership right now between AFLOS, Amos, AFIT, the folks down at Maxwell, also just some amazing people that are spending a lot of time coordinating with each other to ensure that the advanced training is a part of an entire continuum and ultimately fits into this full construct, which is fantastic. Mike, anything you want to add to that for Amos?
Yeah, so obviously Amos, we send 21Ms to Amos too, and you can tell munitions is still in the title of the school, and they're doing great things out there. We had the opportunity as a force development team to visit back in November at Amos, and it's really blown me away how much they've incorporated different munitions exercises and different topics in there. So we're also working with Amos to make sure that those needs are met, not just for the 21Ms, obviously, but for the 21As going through the course too, that we talk all the munitions generation and building issues that have to happen in sortie generation. So we're excited to see where that goes. Right now, we're getting on board our second 21M instructor, so 2 at one time there, which is kind of breaking new ground for us. And both of them have great backgrounds that'll, I think, help the curriculum and keep it moving forward as it applies to munitions concepts as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Moving into our next question. So besides converting to competency-based training at Shepherd Air Force Base, should we expect to see a competency-based transition with other 21X courses as well?
So at risk of being a spring butt, I'll jump on this one to start too. So the short answer to that question is absolutely. The move to competency-based learning is one of those things that in most of the courses that we go through, whether it's formal in tech school or the follow-on training and education that we go through, you'll see competency-based really weaving its way in some form or another into, if not all, many of those opportunities, because we really are focused in on that, improving the thought process for the people going through those courses. So to some form or another, you'll definitely see competency-based going across the suite of experiences of training that we have out there.
And I'll jump in and add a couple things on that. That competency-based philosophy is something that is very exportable. It is intended to allow you to block together the different elements of training and education that you have so that you've built the construct that you want out of any one person. And we're utilizing that concept in our officer career fields. We're also utilizing that concept in our enlisted career fields as well. And the changes of the schoolhouse curriculum that our enlisted CFMs are also working on is to develop competency-based and student-centered focused learning, and working on training modernization as well that helps to flip the classroom and really put it in the hands of the student to learn at the pace that they're going to be able to pick up the competencies that we need them to have in the roles they're going to play, which is pretty cool stuff.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. All right, moving into the next question. Can you touch on the CFETP rewrite efforts for each of the 21X communities to include anything that you can shed light on, like upgrade requirements and different aspects that you will find inside those documents?
So I can start this one, John. So For the 21Ms, we are rewriting the CFETP for us right now, and that's to incorporate all this new philosophy and training of what we're going to be doing at the bases, what they're going to, get at Shepherd, what they have to get through their whole career. So as we look at it, and again, it'll be signed later this year. Our CFETP will be for upgrade requirements. While it may look similar as far as like there will be certain stages of upgrading, because we've revamped all the training and really gotten into, again, getting people to think, getting the leadership aspect in there, practical exercises that'll come out of the different schoolhouses, all that stuff. It's going to look vastly different and better as we go forward. So that's where we're at on it for 21Ms.
And as you will, I'll follow on to that. And as you'll see a theme throughout all of today, 21 A's, M's, and R's are walking through a lot of these journeys together. We're learning from each other. We're building upon each other's experience, which is awesome to have great teammates that we have here. So we're very similar on the CFETP. We're in the middle of retooling it. It'll be a fairly radical change for us as we embrace both the change of our tech schools, but also increase our reliance and our inclusion of different platforms and different styles of learning and different stages of the individual officer's development. And so it is a fairly significant rewrite, much like Colonel Power laid out there. There'll still be some of those things that'll be consistent from last versions of the CFETP. There'll still be different things that we have to do on a specific timeline. But the line items are going to change quite a bit. What we're expecting, the behaviors from those line items is going to change a whole lot. And the tools that we provide the workforce to get that experience and that training and those some of the education that goes along with that will be, in some cases, fairly radically different. And I'm super excited. I won't get into what those are just yet, but I just have to leave it at I'm excited to get this out and update the way we bring our officers into the future, teaching them how today's airman learns.
Yeah, and that the changes within the CFETP it's an illustration of how we're finding all of these advances in the way that we're developing our officers. And what we're working on, similar to the other two career fields, is basically a Scrum iteration process where we're taking different elements of this and working to create something that is exportable as soon as we possibly can. And just as Colonel Coley said, we're all working through this simultaneously, so we're all learning lessons from each other, which is very helpful. The goal of this is to develop a platform that allows people to understand the opportunities that are out there and to match their strengths, their passions, to how they want to pursue this adventure that they have through the Air Force, and to be able to develop themselves into the type of officer that they want, that it also meets the Air Force interests and the Air Force needs. So we're also looking toward a lot of work to be able to get this done, but also looking toward the end of this year, or by the end of 2021, to be able to potentially get a 21 Alpha CFETP out there on the street. Thanks, John. Back to you.
All right, thank you, sir. So in the light of all these enhancements that are going on across the 21X community, I think this question is perfect. So can you provide your perspective on the new age of continuous process improvements? So when you think theory of constraints, Scrum, all those different other methodologies out there, and how best our 21X officers can get plugged into those different methodologies?
Come off of mute here. So I'll jump on this one first. There are a lot of different opportunities out there. And I think that what's really cool about what I'm seeing is different parts of the Air Force grabbing on to different pieces of this, learning from each other, and watching the ideas like theory of constraints find their own way through the service, and find different organizations that are reaching out to be able to grab best practices from others, bring it to their team, improve the way that they're able to do operations, and then find the opportunities that are gained in that to be able to take care of and invest in their airmen. that has been a powerful thing to watch in this role. And to be able to have worked with General Hurry and in her passion to ensure that we're taking care of airmen through the process of delivering new ways to be able to do the work that we do every day, to be able to save them precious time to then take care of each other, has been a lot of fun. And to be able to do that and watch the different units out there find experiences and then be able to scale those experiences through some of our force development platforms and also just through pure communication across the community has been pretty cool to see.
Yes, sir. No doubt about it. All right, this next question, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this topic with this question because we see a lot of Q&A coming in. So we want to be able to afford enough time at the back end of this. So we'll reserve some of the questions that I also had teed up, but this will wrap up this topic and then we'll roll into the next and then into our live Q&A. So gentlemen, of all the training courses you have ever attended, what was your favorite and most impactful?
That's a great question, John. And we, those of us on the panel, I would venture to say we've been to quite a few different training courses, so there's a lot to pick from. But for me personally, it was the Contingency War Planners course taught down at Maxwell as probably the best and the most impactful, and probably mostly because it kind of spoke to how I think I saw myself as a young officer. I was there as a planner. I was there to help our force employ and meet the mission and execute and develop those war plans. And as a young officer with no military background, going into QIPIC, it just really opened my eyes. It opened my eyes about the things that you have to think through in order to campaign plan. And which is, why that ties very nicely to competency-based learning and those thoughts. But QIPIC for me was that course.
Yeah, so I'd say for me it was Amos 15 years ago. Still a very impressive course. I think the thing that impressed me the most about it when I attended was just the high standard. You apply to the course, you get selected, all that, but like when you get there, the standard is very high throughout the entire course. Whether you're tired or not, they keep throwing the assignments at you and keeping the critical thinking going and things like that. And it felt like a huge sense of accomplishment to make it through that course and to make the friends that I made there that are in my class that are still a tight-knit group of people years later. And I've got nothing but good things to say about Amos, and seeing it a couple months ago when I visited, it's only gotten better. It's just an amazing, amazing course.
Yeah, and that would have been my experience too. And I think it's important for everybody to recognize that, of course, these are our experiences. And when I had the opportunity to ask to be able to go to Amos and got selected to go, I knew that was my passion. I knew that was the thing that I wanted to do, was to be further developed into understanding the execution of mission generation right at the tactical level. And that's where I've spent a lot of my time. So for me, that was part of my choose my own adventure. And to get the opportunity to be able to go to Amos as a student, to have the opportunity to be able to go back as the commandant, and to be able to go back a number of times for different courses to be able to help out with different exercises. And now in the CFM role, to be able to work with them again on how that advanced training fits into the full continuum of development that we do for our officers, and how we work to not just get the people that go to the school, the education that's a part of that school, but how does that get exported into the entire population has been a really special thing. So that's probably been my most influential course that I've gone through over my entire time. Thanks, John.
All right, thank you all, gentlemen. So we're moving into the second topic, evolving concepts, new force projection models. First question that I have teed up for y'all: can you provide a summary or a brief explanation on the new force presentation model and how it will impact the 21A M&R career fields and overall the logistics enterprise?
So, John, I'll take a quick stab at this, and I'll start the discussion with, this is just going to be wave tops, right? This is a new concept that is quite detailed, and we could talk for hours on it. But in general, the Air Force is moving to a model that presents an entire capability to the combatant commander on a rotational basis, a 6-month rotational basis. So if analogy helps, think a carrier battle group. The Department of the Navy presents a carrier battle group to Indo-PACOM for a certain period of time. It includes all the ships and the support and that everything that goes along with that carrier battle group. That is something similar to how the Air Force will present forces to the combatant commanders. It'll be a 24-month cycle with 4 6-month phases of that 24-month cycle. And those phases tell you where you are as in reference to actual deploying. One phase is the commit phase. That's when you should count on being deployed for that 6 months. After you deploy, the next phase is the reset phase. This is when you come back home, you retool, you reconstitute, you start rebuilding your forces. After you reconstitute and reset, then you start preparing for the next go around. So that's where you'll do your battle rehearsals. That's where you'll focus more on training. You'll bring those standards up. You'll bring those readiness levels up as you get into that 4th 6-month cycle of that ready cycle. And that is, no kidding, you are ready to go when called upon as soon as you jump into that commit bin. That's where you do your certification exercises and you top off your supply rates, you top off your training and your exercises as you move in and be 100% mission ready before you hit that commit phase. One key point, and then I'll get off the stage for this particular question, is one of the concepts that will go along with this force presentation model. Much like that carrier battle group, you have one in a commit phase. If that combatant commander or the Secretary of Defense says, I need more, I need to reach forward into that ready stage, it's possible, but then those forces that were pulled forward are burnt. They're used up for that next 24-month cycle. And so this will be a way where our service can present forces to the combatant commander in a way that we can assess readiness, and we can measure the impact of that continual demand on whatever the theater might be on that forward and how long we can sustain that, which is, in my opinion, one of the weaknesses that we had in the old AEF cycle. Again, that's just really wave tops. I apologize. It gets pretty tricky, but we can address some of the questions and some in Q&A if you'd like. Over.
All right, thank you, sir. So with that, logistics under attack, that's another huge concept that we've been hearing about, LUA. So how do y'all envision each community getting after the idea of logistics under attack to ensure the mission does not miss a beat when it comes to each of our different career fields?
All right, so I'll start and then turn it over to my compatriots up here. So when we talk about logistics under attack, obviously as a 21R officer, a log readiness guy, that is what we have to be able to produce all the time. Same with my peers, but we look at it a little bit differently. And so from the log enterprise, we focus on LUA really through the lens of persistent logistics, meaning that we have to be able to posture our forces, our equipment, where it needs to be able to respond quickly, because if we're under attack, we don't have the time to bring things across the ocean to be ready or build that mountain of iron that we have in previous fights. We also have to have a sensing capability, so when comms go down, we can still understand what that demand for those resupply could be as we go forward. And then we have to be able to respond to whatever that demand is, wherever it is, in a secure way. And the supply chain resiliency is really tied into that response, and be able to do that even when our adversaries are trying to get inside our OODA loop or inside our data systems. And so that secure response is one of those things that, as a logistician, as a supply chain manager, that we have to pay a lot of attention to.
And just to jump on with a couple of other, I guess, examples and just extensions to that from a 21 Alpha perspective, is that we're going to get a chance to be able to talk about some of these other concepts here in a follow-on question, hopefully. And I'm sure a lot of people are interested in things like ACE and MCA. But from a logistics under attack perspective, the way that Colonel Coley broke it down is really the way that I think all of our communities are going to have to look at it. How do you posture? How do you set up? How do you ensure that you've got things distributed in a way that harks back to some of the ways that we used to think about a high-end fight, but also utilizes new technologies with regard to the sensing, new capabilities, new ideas, new philosophies on how we do this, so that we don't present as big a target as we have in the past, but ensure that we're still able to generate the mission that we have to on whatever scale we have to be able to accomplish. And that is going to take a tremendous amount of energy to figure out where all this concept goes to. And it's not energy that's going to be solely coming out of the staff. As a matter of fact, I think most of the ideas are going to wind up coming from the field. And one of the things that we're focusing on within the staff is to try to figure out what do we have that boundaries us from doing this? What do we have written in policy? What do we have written in force development for our people and our expectations with regard to their competencies that keep us from being able to do things? And as the field continues to explore this and experiment with this, and folks that are working on different ideas of it within the staffs, we're looking to be able to modernize those elements of what we own in A4L to be able to ensure that our teams are ready to accomplish this. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, so one thing is, as we do this, we realize in a lot of ways for persistent logistics to really work and to have this smaller footprint and to operate all over the place, we can't really do it ourselves. So one of the things on the munitions side that we've been working heavily is working with our allies, with our partners, also working with industry, like what is the best way to have the smaller footprint, in our case, to have the munitions that are properly pre-positioned when applicable or can get there to generate that combat air power, as well as, the second order of, protecting the vulnerability of those stockpiles and all that stuff. So that's one of the big things that we're doing right now is working with our allies and partners to see where things overlap, where we can break through some policy issues to, have them employed in the same tasks as us at any one of these, locations. So that's something we're working. It's a tough challenge because we're breaking down some walls maybe that we haven't talked about in a long time about just interoperability with our allies and partners on a regular basis. But that's one thing on the munitions side that we're really focused on right now. Thanks.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Persistent logistics is a perfect segue into this next question. With the direction the Air Force is headed with evolving concepts such as ACE, such as DFE, Dynamic Force Employment, MCA, Multi-Capable Airmen, is there an entity on staff looking at, per se, the legalities of that, the doctrinal aspects of that, to make sure that these concepts are truly being codified?
I'll jump on this question for us and say that there are very few parts of the staff that are not considering these things. And from it, so if you just scope it within A4L, where of course we all work, our three teams are working collectively on trying to figure out how does this work for us? How do these different concepts affect us? And we're looking at, like I said before, the policy aspects of it, of what potentially winds up having to be changed. What do we have in policy now that potentially keeps us from being able to accomplish the change that we need to be able to make? And how do we develop the force that we need, the people that we need to be able to ensure for these ideas to work? Another aspect of that, though, is working collectively across the air staff, across the HAF, and with specifically the MAJCOMs that truly understand their people's competencies, their people capabilities, and the wings that are working on with their energy, the experimentation that is helping to find those boundaries, that is helping to identify the problems and the different risks that we're going to wind up assuming with regard to risk to mission, risk to force, that we're going to have to then make shift and make changes to. Our goal is never to have to accomplish something like agile combat employment or to execute a dynamic force employment by having to skirt around the rules or having to ignore the rules that are out there. The rules that we build, which is what we're focusing on, is trying to figure out how do you in fact support those ideas, support those concepts with the simplest basic idea of those rules to ensure that we're able to accomplish this role in the future.
All right, thank you very much, sir. And to wrap this section up before we go over to live Q&A, what is the plan for UTC unit type code construct and management for these new evolving concepts, as pairing and tailoring is not an enduring solution, as many of our units are experiencing today?
I'll jump on starting this one. I would say that the shift that we're making with regard to the force presentation model that you heard Colonel Coley talk about, and the other concepts of of how to be able to accomplish persistent logistics, the idea of agile combat employment, when you go to make that tactical, when you go to make that actually happen, it has to be expressed in those basic changes, those basic shifts. The UTC of old, which is potentially a very large UTC that can be paired and tailored, it can be made to a different size, is intended to be built with dependent UTCs that would stack on top of it. All of that needs to come under potential change. All of that is going to have to be challenged with regard to how does this really support these concepts and the ability to be able to present ourselves in a particular way, to locate ourselves in a particular way that is not the large target, be able to sense the different issues of risk that are going on, and then to be able to respond to those risks takes UTCs that are built to be able to accomplish that, and connection to a network that's able to help support that and help to inform it. And so there's a ton of work that's going to be going into how does that wind up happening. A lot of these concepts require significantly more things, significantly more pieces of equipment, potentially even more and different types of competencies in the people that we have than we have right now. So it is going to inform those types of changes that then have to be expressed in things like UTCs to be able to make that executable. Thanks, John.
From the 21M perspective, we're obviously involved in all these conversations as well. One of the big things we've done that's happening across the Air Force is the stand-up of these conventional munition squadrons you've seen at all the fighter wings, pretty much all the fighter wings. And I think that's going to help as we get into these conversations of what is exactly the right package of munitions personnel that have to be going out with these UTCs, and just looking at how we best can fit into that new model. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just cap on just a little bit on that as far as so when we move to the force presentation model, it's a lot of it might feel like going back to the future. In some cases, those of you that have been doing deployments and building that process along, the force packaging, the force modules that we used to think a lot about 10 years ago, that is where we're going back to. And so, we talk about both generating the force and the types of UTCs that have to be part of that, which need to be reworked. And like Colonel Maxwell said, those will also have to have new and different type of equipment to be effective. But we also have the open the base force element, which will be that small-ish group of people to get into a base and operate it for those first just a handful of days in a very austere environment. And today our UTCs aren't really built that way, but they have to be in the future to both decrease the number of people that we put in harm's way and to be less of a target, like Colonel Maxwell talked about, but also to embrace the multi-capable airman concept and how do we build those together and then provide the equipment part of those UTCs that make them effective. And that'll be a gigantic shift as we move forward, both in terms of the numbers of things like Colonel Maxwell hit on, but also the types of things that we have to field to be light, lean, mobile, quick. And the UTCs that you'll see as they are refined will reflect that.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. So for everyone out there, please start typing in those questions. We have a few that have come in already, but we're going to dive right into these live Q&A. So let's start with Captain Christopher Hickman coming in with it looks like a voluntary force management question. How are we doing with the reduction in personnel to match the approved force and strength numbers?
Well, Captain Hickman, I'll take a swing at that first off. So you're right. The force management, the voluntary force management program that's out there has been going for a couple months now. And I will tell you that it is effective in that there are people that are applying both in the officer corps and our listed ranks. But I would also offer that it is not currently at the level that we need across the Air Force. The program hasn't completed yet, so typically you don't try to get everything done in the first month. So there's still some more time there. But as we stand right now, the take rate, if you will, is not going to totally erase the bottom line force management numbers that we have to get to. That's not necessarily an indication of any follow-on actions at all, but that's where we are today.
Mike, anything you want to add in there for someone to let you go?
Yeah, so we're obviously looking at the numbers and where the year groups are that are identified and all those things and working with A1, but no huge concerns right now, other than we're in the conversation with A1 to make sure as we move forward in the future, regardless of how it proceeds, that all the CFMs are in there to be pitching in from our perspective of, where we cannot afford shortages going forward. Thanks.
Yeah, along those lines, we are, of course, still across career fields, across all of our career fields, and frankly, all the career fields across the Air Force, still dealing with a bathtub of shortage of people to requirement that we have in that lieutenant colonel level, based on things that were force management that was going on over a decade ago. And that's part of where these teams, your teams, the 21 Alpha M and R teams, have worked to be able to inform and work with A1 on how do we understand the risks to this program. This program is necessary. It absolutely is, because we have to remain within end strength. And all that this program was, of course, the opening of the opportunity for those that would not normally be allowed to separate, to be able to separate. So simply because those that would normally be able to separate, not enough of them did, compared to the accessions that we brought in. So that's simply what this program was. And although we assessed what that risk was across the different year groups, and we understand it with A1, and we continue to monitor it with them as anyone asks for these, I think what you just heard here is there's still a lot of retention. There is still a lot of interest to stay within the service. I'm really happy about that. I think that talks to not just the risks on the outside community, but I think it also informs us a little bit about people's perception of what it means to be a part of the service as well.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for that insight. Moving over to Danny B. He's coming in with a question. What logistics innovations or concepts are the near-peer competitor nations trying to develop to give them the logistical edge over the U.S. military logistics platforms? And how are we developing our logistics personnel to gain new innovations and competencies that give them back that edge to the U.S.?
And that question's for Mike.
I'm not an expert on this, so I'm not going to make anything up here. Obviously read a lot about the China buildup and different things Russia does to trick us, obviously. But I think the concepts that we've talked about already here today are made to address what those countries are doing, right? So when you talk about persistent logistics throughout the Pacific region as an example, that's what we're thinking, right? We're thinking we need to be more dispersed. We can't be just sitting at main bases. And that's why we're working through all the details of how do we do everything we do with a lighter footprint, generating air power out of many different locations, maybe ones we haven't generated out of before, again, working with our allies and partners. So I think that's our response to it. I am not an expert, though, in exactly all the things that they're doing.
So that's a great answer, Colonel Power. Just to augment that just a little bit, so what's China doing, and quite honestly, some of the other adversaries that we face, they are trying to get into our decision loop and trying to get into our systems so that we may go blind on their timeline or inject nefarious ones and zeros into our communication systems. They're also buying tech data. They're buying platforms that our defense contractors use. And so what we as an Air Force, we as a DoD are doing, and which is pretty neat to talk about in front of you as a LOA enterprise, is it's not just the 21Xers of the world out there. It's our acquisition professionals, it's our contracting officers, it's our program managers. We are crafting better language as we deal with our contractors to make sure that we build in that security, that we don't have data clouds riding on the backbone of Yahweh, servers. So part of it is getting in front of our vulnerabilities in our comm systems. But also, and the second part of your question, I think, was it really, our success is incumbent upon how we train our airmen, big A airmen, to think differently and think adaptively. So we aren't that one trick pony. We don't telegraph each and every move, that we think through new and different and then we can support those new and different ideas at the point of need. So it's a cognitive advantage, I believe. Over.
And here's where I have a lot of faith and a lot of hope in the fact that they're not smarter than we are. They're just thinking about what we're doing differently. And if every single one of you, every single one of us thinks about this thing that I do, this thing that I count on, how could this be exploited? How could this be altered in a way that keeps me from being able to do what I've been asked to do? We're going to find it too. And we're going to be able to find ways to be able to ensure that we keep that edge and we stay strong. And to both of what Brad and Mike had said, absolutely. There's a lot of thought that's going into that around the world in a lot of different places in different ways. And frankly, the partnership between our Air Force, our DoD partners, our international partners, industry, everyone, that collective is going to be able to keep that strong. But those risks, we're going to be able to identify those risks, and those opportunities start with you to be able to help us find it. John, back up to you. Thanks.
All right, thank you all so much. So let's roll into the next question. Colonel Coley, this one looks more specific to you. Will the intermediate LRO course be available for DoD logistics civilians to attend?
So Yvonne, the short answer is at some point, yes. If there are DoD civilians that need that experience as they move into the log manager's role, we're going to make that available. I will have to couch that with just a little bit that it might take a little while to get there because, like many of you know, we stopped the intermediate course for a period of time to retool and to get it right. And so we'll have to prioritize as folks go back into it. But that course is built for the intermediate level logistician.
All right, thank you, sir. Got another question in from Major Mike Kravitz, and looks like this one's a little bit more specific to Colonel Power. Has there been any discussion of creating an AMOS-like course specific for ICBM nuke MUNS officers?
Yeah, Mike, so I won't talk all this right now. If you want to tune in on the first, though, we're going to go in depth on some of the advanced training, intermediate training that we're looking at for 21Ms into the future. But the short version is yes, in the sense of Major Ryan Van Artsdale, who's heading up this effort for us, has gone to just a clean whiteboard of like, how can we do better at intermediate and advanced training for 21Ms? As we talked about before, we do send some people to AMOS, but other than that, we've been lacking in our intermediate/advanced training for years. So I'm going to talk more about that on Thursday. But yes, that is one of the options, is looking at something like that, some kind of advanced course focused on nuclear and ICBM. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. So this one comes in from Master Sergeant Jason Riker. Does this new model, when we talk like UTC management and just getting after all these evolving concepts, does this new model apply to forces that are considered enablers who are not typically tied to AEF?
So I'll jump on that one real quick. The short answer is absolutely. There are enabling forces that go and that are part of the operate the airbase and open the airbase force modules. And so they will go part of the AEF. As some of the parts in that open the airbase and operate the airbase force modules that you might not think of that fall into that enabler category, people like our chaplains, people like our historians, they are in that very early grouping of folks to go stand up and operate that base initially. So short answer is yes.
All right, thank you, sir. So we're just got about 5 minutes to go. So I'm going to try and hit some of these main questions that come in. For anyone that has a question that was not answered, we will make sure that we jot these down. We'll get you an answer and we'll kick you an email with those specific answers. So let's roll to Major Christopher Bennett from the 21 Alpha and 21 Mike functional perspectives. What benefit does the creation of munitions squadrons provide as opposed to the traditional EMS or MXS? Does the benefit outweigh the cost of a reorg?
So I can take this one. So for us in the munitions community, obviously a couple of things. One, it produces a squadron that's focused solely on munitions, weapons, and that core function. The other thing is it provides another command opportunity for our 21Ms, which is just an awesome leadership opportunity that we can add to growing our 21Ms. As far as the benefit outweighing the cost of reorg, I think it does. In the initial interactions that we've had, I think it's good to have a munitions officer commander sitting at the table in the fighter maintenance groups. Obviously, like all things, we'll have to see how it goes over the next few years to see the long-term effects of that. But the initial signs for us is it's a good thing. And I guess the other thing, too, is one of the thoughts of it was pulling those folks out, 200-300 people out of an MXS or EMS, makes that a more manageable squadron probably for that EMS or MXS commander, that they can focus more on the airmen that they have. But that's from my perspective. Bill, Colonel Maxwell, if you have anything else.
Yeah, just from a 21 Alpha perspective, I think it does precisely that, and it does the same thing for us. It allows for a slightly more focused effort, and I'm excited for what those munitions squadrons are going to give us an opportunity to be able to do. I do think that anytime that we have a population of officers that are strong enough at the command eligible level to be able to give them a team that is focused and give them a team that is not extraordinarily large, it gives them the chance to be able to form a strongly more capable functioning team, and frankly is healthier for the organization. So I think that gives us some of that opportunity to be able to divide up what are sometimes very large organizations and focus them in on the purpose of what that group is targeted at doing. Over.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move over to Lieutenant Colonel Chris Tuman's question. This one can really apply to 21X as a whole. With FGO manning shortages and challenges and the desire to get away from 3+ squadron commands for our maintainers, and I know the 21Rs typically are doing two commands, how do we manage the new requirements within our squadrons with that FGO shortage that we have?
I can jump on this one first. So like I just said, right, we like to be able to do get it to as focused, as appropriately sized a squadron as you can, while at the same time you have to balance that based on the population of officers that you have that are command eligible. So absolutely, the discussions that we're having with regard to organizational structure change, including the additional MUN squadrons and potentially other squadrons as well, those decisions are all being made through the information of what our current population is of command eligible officers and command eligible chiefs and the capability to be able to perform the first sergeant duties. I mean, all of those things ultimately inform a part of this, and our walking through those decisions together with the teams of A1 and the other communities as well, to ensure that we're doing it in a healthy way is really important. So we're having to balance that. We are, and you're absolutely right, Chris. This is it's something that's really important that we manage correctly, because some of the reasons that we've had to adjust the number of squadrons that we've had in the past, both up or down, is sometimes based on population, but it's also based on the pure requirement that population is filling, the actual number of officer positions that we have, which are limited. So those things are aspects of having to control how broadly we expand and stand up potentially new squadrons.
And I'll just cap on to that just a little bit as a 21R side of the 21A, not struggles, but the way you're addressing it is as evident of having all three of us on the panel today together. We're trying to do a lot more of integrating the officer core of 21X officers. Now that, like General Hurry had in the chat, that doesn't mean we're creating a 21X career field and everybody's going to be the same. That's not the intent. But the intent is where it makes sense to look at the quality of the logistician for the opportunity versus the exact AFS. There might be an occasion where a 21R officer has the requisite training, experience, and education to be a deputy group commander in an AMOG somewhere. Maybe not. But the focus and the communication that we have as a team together is looking at the pool for those opportunities and trying to find out where they make sense so we can help each other out and be a logistics family as we go forward in the future.
Yeah, and just real quick on the 21M side, as I mentioned before, we're looking at this as an outstanding opportunity, these new munitions squadrons standing up. And we do have the pool of people right now to meet those requirements. We've expanded our command window a little bit, but we still have a good ratio of candidates to pick from. So as long as we continue in that direction and are able to meet these requirements, it's a really good thing for us. But we are, of course, managing it carefully. And third squadron commands will continue to be, by exception only. It'll happen occasionally, but it'll be very deliberate when it does. Thanks.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. We have reached the end of this journey. We have reached our cap point to make sure that we hand it back over so everyone can get to some other venues within the logistics virtual symposium. There are just a couple questions we didn't get to. I will make sure I jot those down. We'll get an appropriate response out to all the individuals that asked them. But gentlemen, are there any parting words that you would like to share with Logistics Officer Association University as we close this session out? Colonel Coley, we'll start with you and let's work our way down.
Just that I hope you're as excited as we are. I'm excited because we're back to LOA National Symposium, although virtual, but it's a step in the right direction. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that we could meet and exchange ideas and learn from each other. And I'm excited and ecstatic about where our career fields are going in the future. We are producing more capable airmen to do what our nation needs, and you play a huge role in that, and I thank you in advance.
Just real quick, so thank you all for being here today. Thank you for keeping this amazing LOA organization going. This is a great opportunity for us to share what's going on in our communities, and we're really trying to be good at communicating to the field. So events like this are just absolutely wonderful for us. But we need the feedback from you too, so it goes both ways. Thank you.
And my final words, I'll say I'm most excited about what I'm seeing from you all in the field and the energy that you have for the change that you see we need to make. And the commitment that you have from us as CFMs is to figure out how do we take care of you, to develop you, the people that come in behind you, to ensure that we have the strongest possible officer corps to be able to take care of our airmen across our different specialties to accomplish this logistics mission. And to the team that has worked to put this venue on in the midst of everything else, this is at times even tougher to do than an in-person type of scenario where you get a lot of focused effort and you have people that have to commit to time that you didn't get commitment out of us for this week to be able to do this very well. And I know that it took a lot of energy to be able to bring people together to do this. So thank you for those that have put in all the work to make this venue happen for all of our logisticians and our partners out there. John, and thank you for taking care of us here today. Back over to you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. For everyone out there, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the symposium, and we will see you around the block. Out here.